Let me take you to ENCA's Ayesha Ismail, who is outside the St. George's Cathedral and continues to monitor that process of people coming through to view the mortal remains. In fact, the coffin bearing the mortal remains of Archbishop Desmond Tutu lying in state. Ayesha, how's it looking from your side at this hour?
Well, Tunis, I must say, I stood here for about 2 hours and the queue was very, very long, but it's a short queue now because the process of getting into the cathedral is a very smooth process. So people line up, they then get their temperatures tested, they are sanitized, they can then come and sign the condolence books and then go into the cathedral. I also took a moment during the break to go inside to go and pay my last respects to Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And I must say, it was quite a sad moment for me. And just looking at his, the simple casket and the fact that he did only want a bunch of carnations, white carnations on his coffin, and just looking again at the simplicity, for me, just said it all about how simple and how humble this man was, and yet he had such a great impact, not only on us in South Africa, but in the world over. But I also had the opportunity to speak to Mandla Mandela. In fact, I was actually looking at the queue earlier, and I actually spotted him in the middle of the queue, and he waited his turn to come and sign in and to go and pay his condolences, or rather he signed the book and then he went in to go and pay his respects. And I asked him about, the fact, or at the time when his grandfather was lying in state, and what he would like to share about Archbishop Desmond Tutu and the similarities between these two great men. And this is what he had to say.
Well, you speak of Arch, who's a well-lived life. We have fond memories of him as a family. But I think for me personally, what I will always cherish about Arch's life is the activism in him. He has inspired many young activists today in South Africa, in Africa, and globally to continue to be the voice of the oppressed. He always used to say that if you remain silent in a situation of injustice, you've taken the side of the oppressors. And I think with us continuing to take the baton forward, particularly on the Palestinian issue, today Palestinians celebrate the contribution that Arch had on their own struggle for self-determination. And we are thankful as this young generation to have been able to have such a mentor, to have such an inspiration to our own activist work.
And I'm sure when you were standing over there in the queue, I mean, it was kind of almost reminiscent of the time when your grandfather died, and you stood there stoically guarding the body of your grandfather, and now you're coming to pay tribute to Archbishop Desmond Tutu. His body is lying in state here today.
Yeah, for us and myself in particular, being here takes me back to that time when my grandfather was lying in state, as I stood every day side by side with him. And today it is for us an honor to be able to come pay tribute to Arch and do the same for him, to bid farewell to him. For him and my grandfather were always close in engagements on various topics, and what I would also treasure is that Arch always challenged my grandfather and pushed him, particularly on issues they differed on. So to be here and look back at my grandfather's own memoir when he was lying in state almost brings you to the realization that this generation that paved the way for our freedom is becoming no more. And I hope that even after the funeral is come and gone, young South Africans would draw on life of Arch and be able to be that voice, because to foes and like Arch was always able to speak out on the truth, on the wrongs and right that were happening in the country. And I hope that we won't be silent, particularly on the rife of corruption that we are witnessing today.
Well, hopefully you will carry that baton on behalf of your father and on behalf of Archbishop Desmond Tutu.
It would be a lot for an individual to have on their shoulders, but I think collectively as South Africans, as Africans and global activists, we can able to continue with the remarkable work that they have left behind as a huge legacy for us to learn from and to be able to pave the way forward.
Right, so that's the ANC MP there, Mandla Mandela, in conversation with you a bit earlier on, Ayesha Ismail. And it sort of takes me back to that year when Nelson Mandela passed on, and Mandla Mandela played that role, and played it so admirably as well, of basically almost standing guard and being there stoically, yet in a very dignified way, while pushing through his own grief at the passing of his grandfather, Nelson Mandela, day after day, as many South Africans filed past the casket of the late Nelson Mandela to see him lying in state, particularly in Pretoria at the Union Buildings. It really does take one back, that particular scene and that interview with Mandla Mandela. Finally, Ayesha, I see that behind you the laying of wreaths has produced what's starting to look like a wall, a beautiful and colorful wall that perhaps aptly talks to the colorful character of the Arch.
Exactly, and earlier we had representatives from the interfaith community, and they also came to come and lay a wreath, and I'm not sure if we're able to get to show you the wreaths at the wreath that they came to lay here for Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And again, it was representatives of the Muslim faith, the Christian faith, the African traditional faiths, and also the Hindu faith. And it was just so amazing to talk to all these religious leaders and hearing from them their memories of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. But we're going to be sharing that interview with you a little later, perhaps in the next crossing. But as you can see, all these flowers and even personal letters, people standing here writing letters and just expressing their feelings and their love and joy for Archbishop Desmond Tutu. The condolence books are also filling up, and I'm just wondering if Mario can just show you there's another group of people. More people are beginning to queue up now. And just remember, Tulas, I think you're still sitting on the Grand Parade. It was pouring earlier. The skies have now cleared and the sun is beginning to shine, and so more people are now coming to come and pay their condolences and to come and say their last goodbyes, or to come and view the casket here inside St. George's Cathedral. And just to come and meditate, because there is that opportunity when you get into the cathedral. Once you've passed the coffin, there are ushers inside who actually ask you, would you like to exit the cathedral, or would you like to meditate for a few minutes? And I think, and when I went inside, I actually saw a few people actually taking up the opportunity to go and sit down and meditate for a few minutes before leaving the cathedral.